Jacob, you two were the inspiration for what Rachel just did. Well, without any further ado, everyone's got a long bio, but I want to make it very short so we give our presenters enough time. Mike Lorenz and a good friend of mine, Kent Sampson, really wanted Matt to be here today. And Matt has brought a guest, Laura, who he'll introduce in just a moment. Matt spoke at Emeritide several months ago about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. I told Matt when I was in Hutchinson and working with the Rotary Club up in Kansas, we were very involved with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. They're going to speak about how it puts a book every month into the hands of a child from when they're born up till 5 years of age. And I just told our board just a moment ago, many of us are educators and all of us believe in education. And we all recognize that education really begins when they're just born as young children. The presentation today is going to be absolutely incredible and great. Matt Upson is the Associate Dean of Research and Learning Services at Oklahoma State. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who will also introduce Laura.
Thank you, Jimmy Ray. Thanks for having me again. This is, I think, the second meal that I've pulled out of you all, so I appreciate that. It's a bit of a bait and switch here in that I've been on the roster, the speaking list for a while now, and I've invited Laura Sikes here to join me. But that bait and switch is to your benefit, I think, because while I've been very involved with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library locally, and I'll talk about that more shortly, Laura has really done a heck of a lot of work to make this possible at the state level. She is the director of the Oklahoma Imagination Library and works with the State Department of Education. So I realized too late in the game, I mean, really it was just last week, right? Where I thought, oh crap, Laura knows so much more about what this looks like at the state level, and she's been working with the program longer. It makes sense to have Laura here. She mentioned she's talked to many Rotary clubs in the state already. And so I invited her up. She was gracious enough to make the trip today. And so she's going to really provide the bulk of this content and give you that context at the state level, what the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is all about, how it can benefit children, families, and communities. And then I'm going to take a little closer look at what we're doing here in Payne County and Stillwater. And then we'll have a chance to ask, or for you all to ask any questions. So thanks again for having us, and I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you all for having me here. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Well, I brought Dolly with me. I don't know if anybody wants to get their picture with her, but someone mentioned they saw Dolly when they walked in and it startled them. I put her behind me sometimes when I have video calls so people can see her, and then I forget that she's there and startle when I turn around and she's watching me. So exactly. We will get the real Dolly Parton here in Oklahoma as soon as we have an Imagination Library program over halfway to that goal. So expect to have Dolly here for an event in the next year, a year and a half for Imagination Library. I'm Laura Sikes. I work for the State Department of Education, like Matt said. My job really is to help us get Dolly here. I'm looking for program partners for Imagination Library across the state. And to go a little bit further back than that, Dolly started Imagination Library back in 1995 in Tennessee. It was originally intended to be a scholarship program for seniors in her hometown. She wanted to get the graduation rate up in Sevier, Tennessee. And after running that scholarship program for several years, she realized they weren't seeing any difference in graduation rates. And so she was really concerned. She started interviewing local educators, people who knew a lot about how she could address this problem locally. And what she heard over and over again was that you can't start when the kids are in high school. You have to go all the way back to when they're little tiny babies to get them interested in learning through reading when they're really young. So that's how Imagination Library came about. It did start as a Tennessee program, and it got so popular there that it's kind of grown exponentially. It spread to a nationwide program, and now it's actually across the world. There's programs in Canada, Ireland, the UK, Australia, and here in the United States as well. And we already mentioned that the book, Mail's an age-appropriate book. to children in their homes. So what that means is the books are selected for the age of the child based on their ability to learn and read and grow. So the babies get board books that are intended to be interesting to kids that can't really see that well yet. So they're high contrast, it's Pat the Bunny, the pages can't be ripped out, things of that nature. And then I brought examples of some of the books that are given throughout the program. And these are books that the older kids would receive that actually have a story that you sit down and read with a child in your lap, as you think of reading with children typically is. So here in Oklahoma, we actually have better numbers than this right now because Tulsa came on board a few weeks ago. So we've gone from 11% of kids in the state enrolled to about 17% of the kids in Oklahoma are currently enrolled. We have 42,000 kids enrolled statewide right now, and we have 35 or 36 programs that are currently enrolling children across the state. You can see there that the cost of the program per month per child is $2.20 on average. Here in Oklahoma, we have a program that actually reduces that cost for local partners, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. This slide here just shows the growth or the representation of Imagination Library across the United States. You can see here in Oklahoma, we're pretty bare. Texas, also pretty bare. A lot of other places though, you can see New Mexico, Kansas to the north of us, Arkansas to the east of us, all have programs that are pretty much throughout the entire state. And that's what we're going for here in Oklahoma as well. So United States will receive a book through the program, and that means they are mailing out more than 2 million books every month to children across the United States. We were lucky before the State Department of Education even got on board. We had several program partners across Oklahoma. So I really like to highlight the fact that the State Department of Education wasn't the first one to bring Imagination Library here. There were individuals operating across the state, about a dozen programs before OSDE was actually involved. I won't play the video that I typically play just because I know we're recording and they wouldn't be able to hear the audio, but I'll make sure and email that out so you guys can watch on your own. It shows a family in Muskogee. All of the kids in the family have been in the program. It's a really sweet video. I can? It'll show? Okay. Let's see if we can. Oops.
Underground house. We've had lots of good laughs and connections that we make when we read together. Oh, sure, said the Gruffalo, bursting with laughter. It's just a great way to connect with your kids.
The Imagination Library is a book program that sends books to children who are under the age of 5 to their homes every month for free.
I signed up my boys when they were 3 or 4. Currently, I have 2. My younger girls, they're 2 and 5.
It's a program that's getting children ready for being in school, but also gives parents an opportunity to set time aside with their children. It's helping us see another perspective, learn empathy. It's helping us learn how to solve problems.
Parents sometimes don't know how to pick developmentally appropriate books for their kids. And this takes the guesswork out of that because the books are picked for the age of the child.
We have received quite a stack over the years.
The Imagination Library came about because Dolly's father wasn't able to read. And she said that she thinks that he was the most intelligent man and wondered, how much would he have been able to do if he had had that skill? It's now international and around the world, children are getting these great books.
Snake took one look at the Gruffalo. Oh dear, he said.
I love that we give them something to be excited about, and it's not an iPad, it's not the phone.
It elevates our love of books, and the biggest thing is that it draws us together and we spend time together talking. All was quiet in the deep, dark wood. So that's one of the best things about books.
So it's a really cute video, obviously, but it does show the impact of the program on a family. So the older boys that were kind of leaning behind the couch, the photographer had to go into their rooms to get the books to spread out on that ottoman. They saw that shot with all of the books spread out. And the boys were kind of concerned. They were like, wait, we're getting those books back when you're done with them, right? Those are our books. So even all these years later, these big high school, junior high boys still have a strong emotional connection to this program because their mother read to them these books when they were little. So it really does stay with these kids. And what a gift to give to a community's children, that the grown-ups in their town cared enough about them to make sure they had this service. So I just think it's a really great program in that way. So the reason why the State Department of Education got involved with Imagination Library was we were looking at our literacy data based on test results, and obviously it's not good. These are all numbers that were pulled down before the pandemic, and these numbers have increased exponentially since the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, 41% of kindergarten students in Oklahoma were determined to be at risk for having reading difficulties in kindergarten. And that number is now at least 50% or higher. So we're really wanting to reverse that and make sure that kids are going into pre-K and kindergarten with as many resources and all of those literacy skills already, in play from having been read to by their families when they were at home. In 2019, only 39% of our third graders could score proficient or above, meaning could pass the English language arts assessment, which means that 61% of our third graders failed, could not pass. So that's a lot of remedial reading students, and we really want to turn those numbers around in Oklahoma. So that's why we're investing money into this program to get resources to families of very, very young children. Another reason why we want to get resources to families with really, really young children is early childhood is when the brain develops these pathways that allow us to learn, to read, to speak, to be good students. So if we get children's brains on board and activated with these resources as much as we can, they have a better opportunity when they go into school to feel confident, sure of themselves, able to learn, able to pay attention to their teacher. So Imagination Library in Oklahoma is actually a state law. It was authored by Senator John Hayes and Representative Tammy Townley back in 2020. It was passed in 2020. And after that, the State Department of Education chose to take $2.5 million of our federal ESSER relief funding to put into this program as an initial investment in Imagination Library in Oklahoma. So we have until 2024 to spend $2.5 million on books. So that's why we're out in force trying to get this program in as many communities as possible so we can share that money equally across the state. And we do anticipate being able to provide match funding for the program in the future through hopefully a budget appropriation from the legislature next year. All right, so we also have a lot of questions from communities about what the program does for its participants. We think this is a good idea. It sounds like a good idea. Getting books to kids, obviously everybody wants that, but what are the outcomes? What happens to kids that are in this program? Another big question that I get is, how do you know that the families are actually reading to their children if they receive these books? There have been multiple studies across the United States in different states where universities have interviewed parents or asked parents that are in the program, do you actually read more to your child now that you're in this program than you did before? And the answers are overwhelmingly yes. So we do have, at least from parents, reports that the resources that are provided to the program are utilized by families. Some outcomes for students in the program: kindergarten students in Alaska could perform 25 points higher on their reading assessments than their peers that weren't in Imagination Library. And they even did better on the math score portion of the test as well. And then those benefits even extend into third grade and beyond. But just to highlight, the third grade students in Tennessee that were enrolled in Imagination Library for multiple years performed better than their peers that weren't in Imagination Library in the fall and the spring reading tests on every aspect of the testing that they were tested on. So outcomes for students enrolled in Imagination Library, definitely positive and better than their peers that aren't in Imagination Library. All right, this is just a little infographic that kind of shows the life cycle of the program in case anyone is curious about how it works. On the left, you have a gray square that says local affiliate 501c3 partner. That is going to be the organization in the community that has chosen to be the sponsor for the program, take on the responsibility of fundraising. And here in Stillwater, we have a partnership between United Way of Payne County and the Stillwater Public Library. So we have other people involved as well. Matt is on the committee that helps with that. But those are our two major partners for the program here in Payne County, Stillwater. So their responsibilities are to fundraise, obviously, but also to promote the program. So making social media posts, doing advertising, making sure that, you know, there's things in the paper about Imagination Library so that families know the program is here, they can sign up now and get books for their children. And then on the other side of that is Imagination Library National, which is in Tennessee. They cover the overhead, meaning none of the funds that are raised locally go towards anything but paying for books for kids. Everything salary-wise, any overhead costs are paid by the Dollywood Foundation. They also provide a database and have IT support for free so that local affiliates that are enrolling children have someone to ask questions of about the program if they have any issues. And then they pick the books every year. So they get a group of people together. They call them the Blue Ribbon Book Selection Committee. All of these folks have bios that are available on the Imagination Library website. So if anyone is curious about who picks the books and the decisions that go into that, they're all educators, librarians, book publishers, book authors of children's books. So people who really live and breathe children's literature. And they get together once a year. Everybody brings a stack of books that they think needs to be in the book list for the next year, and they kind of battle it out about which books are going to be on the list for next year. And then, of course, they ship and mail the books out every month as well. All right. So do you want me to turn it over to you now, Matt?
That's okay.
All right. Matt is going to actually give you guys all of the rest of the information specific to Payne County. So thank you for having me. And this is really, honestly, one of the, not just biggest, but biggest and liveliest and funnest rotaries that I've been a part of. So, and I've been all over the Oklahoma. So.
Thanks, Laura. And please be sure to jump in and tell me, hey, it's not quite right. Get it right, Matt. So a little bit of context for myself. You know, Laura mentioned United Way is our local affiliate along with the Stillwater Public Library. I am not on the United Way board. I am not an employee of Stillwater Public Library, although I am on their board. I came to this project looking back about 10 years now, when we were in Kansas, as Jimmy Ray mentioned, and you saw on the map that Laura showed, Kansas is very active with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And so when my oldest son, Colin, was born in 2012, we were able to get involved in this program very early on. Good connections in the hospital. You know, we go home with a packet on, how to be a parent, a new parent. Well, I don't know. Yeah. But we also get, this registration form on Dolly Parton Library. And we had a visitor come to our house, a retired school teacher who came and was volunteering her time, came and introduced us to the program, followed up with us and gave us some materials as well. So my wife, Irene, and I left Kansas to come back here in 2014. Very excited about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And when we got here, we found out that it was not in place in Stillwater or Payne County. Did some initial investigations to see if we could make that happen. For a variety of reasons, it didn't get any traction. And then pandemic hits, flash forward to last summer, where I was contacted by a colleague at OSU who asked me if we were going to get involved with this. And I said, well, we've heard about it and we know about it. We tried to do this in the past, but I don't know. We didn't really have so much success last time. And then he pointed out that we had that access to the federal pandemic relief funds, and that we're going to be a matching source of funding. And I thought, well, this is too good of an opportunity to pass up. So we began to investigate. And so my role here has been trying to bring some stakeholders together, have some conversations about what this looks like locally, how to make it happen, how to communicate, how to fundraise. So that's how I came to be part of this. Again, this is the main players in this partnership are the United Way of Payne County and Ruth Cavins and her staff, as well as Stacy Delano and her staff at the Stillwater Public Library. I don't want to imply that those are the only partners that have been part of this. There are a number of community partners that have been in place since last July when we started these conversations and helped us set some of these initial processes and goals that we wanted in place. So initially we were kind of spitballing, well, how many kids in the county do we want to be enrolled? And we thought 500, 600. So we had some initial numbers, eventually reached about a goal of 1,200, but we were able to gain enough funding along with the matching funds from the State Department of Ed to reach 1,500 registrations for this calendar year. So we opened up registration the week of Thanksgiving last year, 2022. And within a few days, we were up to 800 already. And we were texting, I had sometimes we need reasons to get away from our families during the holidays, and this is one of my excuses to get up from the table and say, I got to answer Dolly Parton email. And we got up, and me and Stacy and Ruth were talking about, oh crap, what do we do? This is going to fill up before we even have a chance to turn it off. And it slowed down a little bit, which, it trailed off. But I think that surpassed Ruth and Stacy's wildest expectations, how fast that would start to fill up. And so we paused it for a bit before opening it back up. And the United Way has been really gracious about committing funds to making this happen, meeting our goal of, or trying to meet our goal of 1,500 for the year. I will also note of those early 800 registrations in that first week, 300 of those registrations were not done online. They were done on paper specifically due to outreach by the Stillwater Public Library and their efforts to go out into the community and work with potentially at-risk families and children and getting them, prioritizing their sign up and registration initially so that they didn't get blocked out if other kids filled up the spots. So that is one of our priorities. I don't think Laura had mentioned this, but I know you told it to us early on. It's open to everyone. Dolly wants everyone to participate in this. There's no financial criteria that families have to meet. They just need to live in Payne County, right? But we, as a local committee, wanted to make sure that students who are at most risk, who need to have these books in their hands, can get them first. I said I participated. My kid participated in Kansas. His dad's a librarian and his mom's a teacher. He was going to have books anyway, right? It's not, we love to participate, but we're not, he's going to have that. He's going to have that anyway. We want to make sure that kids that may not be as likely to have books in their hands, in their houses, to have a chance to get to this. So currently, this is just very slightly outdated because Laura's collecting numbers and we're still enrolling people. So it has 1,450 children enrolled. I checked this morning and we've got 1,475. So almost to our 1,500 in Payne County. We have 93 that have graduated, and meaning they've hit that 5-year-old threshold and they're no longer in the program. That seems kind of weird that they've only got 2 or 3 books, 4 books at this point. But some people are so excited, they just wanted to get in. They got their 1 or 2 free books and now they've moved on. So that number of graduated children in Payne County will continue to grow. You can see here, it's been growing monthly by 10% each month over the past few months. We hope to maintain that. I'll talk more momentarily about our long-term goals. And currently, children in Stillwater make up about 66% of our enrollees. And a quick breakdown as of about March 1st, I think is when I ran these numbers. Stillwater has 66%. Cushing has about 14% of our children. Perkins, 9%. Glencoe, 4%. Yale, 4%. And Coyle at about 1%. So we know there's some opportunities to continue growing around the county and those communities. And we're doing some outreach to entities and individuals in those communities to help spread the word about the program. So final bullet point here, we're seeking new partners to continue communicating the value of this program as well as fundraising. We are now including information packets through Stillwater Medical Center for those new parents. So the same way that I was able to find out about this program, we are doing for new parents here in the county. And we'll be working on getting information out through pediatricians' offices during well child exams. So just a quick breakdown of those costs. Laura mentioned $220 per book, right? So you can see here the bottom number, $2.20 per child per month, comes to $26.40 a year. That gets them 12 books. You have the breakdown by the affiliate partners, that's local dollars, and you've got the OSDE match, right? 50-50, 1-to-1. So what that looks like in practice, roughly speaking, this is about where we're at right now. And we've calculated the eligible number, the eligible population in Payne County at about almost 4,500 children. So what this looks like in 2023, basically, is we are attempting or have essentially raised this roughly $20,000 with a match of about $20,000 from the state. So we're able to provide books for these almost 1,500 children for the entire year. for a total of about $40,000, again, basically split in half. So long term, I think, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, the average community and the expectation of a cap, about 65%. And so I'll show these next two slides at both of those percentages and what that might look like. Again, knowing that the number of children in the county will fluctuate, go up, go down, but basing it on our current numbers. So if we aim for about 60% of our eligible children to be enrolled, what that amounts to in terms of local dollars needing to be raised would be just about $36,000. Or if we bump that number up to 65%, about $38,000. So that's what we're going to be aiming for in the coming years, to generate around that amount every year and keep growing the number of children who are participating in Payne County until we hit that 65% and hopefully exceed it and try to get a book in the hands of any and all children here in Payne County. One of the really cool things about this that I always love to mention is that if you have a family with a couple siblings, 2 or 3 kids, a year or 2 apart, it's great that child number 1 doesn't go through that program and get their 12 books, 24 books, and then child 2 starts. They don't get the same books. It's really neat. Now they'll get the first book and the last book and their entire program that are the same. But each year there's a new selection. As Laura mentioned, the committee will select new books. And so my 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, they'll go through this program and we'll have a collection of 60, 120, 180, 240 books that are all different. And they create this library that's in their house that they will have for years. I appreciate hearing that story about those middle schoolers coming back and like, don't take away my books. This is my stuff, yeah. And I know, my mom was a librarian and an educator. I have the same sense of love for the printed word. And, as a librarian, every day I read stuff on my laptop, stuff on my phone, but having those print materials and having something that you can share with a loved one, whether it's your kid, a grandchild, a family member, a friend, being able to sit down there on a couch and read through something with a child and make that connection, establish that connection in their head of love and care and concern and education with them early on, and associating that with books, with the printed word, with beautiful illustrations. I think there's nothing better than that. I'm just really excited to be part of this. So what we're asking from you all today is just continue to talk about this program. Please let us know if there are other opportunities to speak about this. If you'd like to donate to the program, you just make checks out to the United Way of Payne County, the memo line, Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and then mail it to them. I'm happy to deliver checks as well. And we've experienced a lot of success with this so far, and I think there's a lot of success to come. So any questions? Yes.
Someone from Yale wanted to support children from Yale. They write a check that was just support one.
I don't believe that. I mean, we can't target specific children, but what we can do is really, if an individual from any other community in the county wants to donate, I would work with that member of that community, and I pull in United Way and say, how are we going to work with this person to create a greater umbrella of connections in that community and get the word out better. There are opportunities for, say, sponsorship. You can get your organization's name put on the mailing labels. So when the kids get this in the mail, they'll receive their book. Laura, I don't know if there are mailing labels on these ones, but you'll be able to see, this is for Colin Upson, funded by United Way this month. Yeah. So in this case, it's got, made out to an individual. It's coming to that kid, which is always fun to be able to get a package in the mail and use something for yourself. It says personal gift for, which is fun. And then you can have that line on there demonstrating who is funding it for that month. Yes, sir.
So what percentage of families so far, maybe statewide, actually choose to pay for their kids' books as opposed to relying on help from the affiliates?
So Dolly does not want families to pay for their own books. They can donate to the program if they choose to, but the program is supposed to be free to families. So we're instructed by the Dollywood Foundation not to approach families for donations. But they can, if they wanted to, make a donation to their local sponsor for the books that they receive.
I would hope that our Rotary Board would consider a donation to Payne County to support this program.
Library, how much money have they raised towards the goal, and or how much were you asking different businesses, or was there an average of what people were giving?
I wouldn't say there's an average. I know we've had a number of individual donors, including some of you in this room, have donated money already. And I don't want to say $50 would be great. We see right here, you get a book for $2.20. You donate $2.20, you put a book in a child's hand. We've been going to organizations, various foundations in town, and asking anywhere from $1,000 to, I asked one group for $25,000. I believe for starting in next calendar year, because basically we'll say, we're probably going to cap it at about 1,500. We know that we've got a little wiggle room since we haven't been at 1,500 yet. We've got some space there for growth. But we're committing all new funds. I believe this is what Ruth at United Way is doing, committing all new funds to future years. I think we've got about $20,000 for next year. So we're well on our way to covering a good chunk of next year. And I'm just thinking about, not just 2024, but on into the future. I have every confidence that the we're going to have funding, appropriations covering half of it, but knowing that if we don't, are we going to be able to raise about $80,000 a year? I know we can do that in Payne County.
When does that OSDE go away?
We have the funds to spend until 2020, the end of 2024. I'm going to be approaching the legislature for a budget appropriation beginning of next year for 2025.
Since Stillwater has such a large population of international students, I could see this being a very important program for those children. Have you given any special emphasis to that, or?
We've connected with the Family Resource Center. Yes, and there are some connections with Afghan families who aren't necessarily tied to the university now, but we're supported by the university when they moved in. So yes, and we will continue to work through the Family Resource Center, especially on campus, to reach some of those families.
Okay, any other questions? Let's give him a great big hand.